welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening, or this afternoon, or this morning, or whenever you happen to listen, because after all, it is your podcast. Joining me today is, I was going to say it's a man, but it's probably the man who has taken the cardboard world by storm in the last couple of years with some of the content and creations that he's putting out there. It's a gentleman by the name of Isaac Childres. You might have heard of him. He did a game called Forge War, and he also has done a new game called Founders of Gloomhaven. But he's probably best known for Gloomhaven itself, which has proved to be a behemoth that's grown arms and legs, as well as its own legacy system along the lines. So, hello Isaac, thank you for joining us.
Hello, happy to be here. It's quite flattering.
Yeah, I was like, you're not. I am completely. I don't know. I was saying to you kind of just before we started. I was like, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't kind of get usually quite nervous. So for people who haven't listened to the show before, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is because, well, apart from ourselves and apart from Unlucky Frog Gaming, we're pretty much, I think, the only podcasts out there that are dedicated to board games, and we're the only Scottish podcasts out there that are dedicated to board games. And the other reason that we do this is because I like speaking to creators. I like finding out their motivations. I like finding out their stories, how they got into the hobby, just things like that. So I took a leap of faith and I asked Isaac, and Isaac said yes, and Isaac's here. So I'm very grateful for that. Do you want to maybe start off by telling us a little bit about kind of how you got into the hobby to kind of begin with?
Sure. Let's see here. So I've played games throughout my life, like not serious hobby gaming, but I remember when I was a kid, like sitting in a room by myself, like playing Monopoly against myself. I would just roll dice like all day and move pieces around, and I don't know, something about it was interesting to me. Did you win a lot? Well, yes, I won and lost in equal measure.
Well, that's pretty good. Good 50-50 split. Did you play this rule that people are for some reason going crazy about, which is if you land on a property and you don't buy the property, then it's meant to get auctioned, apparently now by the banker. This is something that came out over the last couple of days, and apparently the internet is going on fire about Monopoly.
I was not aware of that rule at the time, but yeah, no. I've heard of the rule since then, but yeah,
it's become like an internet phenomenon.
I mean, I can never think of a time when you landed on a property and didn't buy it, though. So. Yeah,
unless you didn't have any money, and then I think it's maybe one of these things that is kind of blown out of proportion, and everybody's going, everybody's been playing Monopoly wrong, and it's like the real players of Monopoly are saying, nah, we knew, you just, you go back to your own version of Monopoly. We know the real kind of truth. So were you, did you have brothers and sisters when you were growing up that you played with, or were you kind of like an only child yourself then?
Yeah, I had an older brother and sister. But I don't really remember playing games with them much. Playing games was more just my thing, I guess.
And how did you move on from that? I mean, did you kind of stay with the board game stuff, or were you moving away and kind of doing other things?
I mean, I mainly played video games when I was growing up and throughout high school and college. I mean, I would play board games occasionally. I remember getting into like Axis and Allies in high school at one point. We played that a lot. So just games in general are always good. I've always enjoyed a good game. I guess the problem with board games, at least early in my life, was that they just weren't very good. I mean, not that Axis and Allies isn't good, but it's, they're just more about like rolling dice and seeing what happens than making any real decisions.
The Axis and Allies fans are currently screaming at you at the moment.
It's just like the strategies in that game are so played out. Or I don't know, like the original, you know, it's like you do this and you do this and you hope that the dice go well for you. And if they don't, then you lose. But it takes 6 hours for you to lose, so.
It's like drawn out pain. Oh, I'm going to get the Axis and Allies people after us as well. What kind of video games were you into?
I really like role-playing games, like Phantasy Star, and I was like a Sega Genesis kid growing up, so I had Phantasy Star and Shining Force.
Did you ever play the Immortal at all?
Oh, yeah.
Which was,
Yeah, it was like sort of like a more puzzle game where you're going through like different floors and you can there's so many different ways to die.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and you had
I
to
remember
figure out how not to die over and over and over. Yeah.
Especially the last boss, because you had about 5 or 6 different spells, and I ended up...
Yes, do it in exactly the right order.
I ended up having it, but you didn't have the internet in those days, so you actually had to go and find a magazine or an article or something like that actually told you how to beat the Immortal. It's not like nowadays. I don't even know if there was a phone line you could phone up, but there was a certain order, because you faced off against this kind of dragony demon bad guy, and you had to use certain spells in a certain order. But the combat was cool, because when you went into combat, the screen blacked out, so it was only you and the other guy.
Yeah. And
then you had a choice of defending, or you had a choice of kind of like a I spent far too long. It was pretty bloody.
Yeah.
There was different ways of kind of killing people.
I think
other games.
Yeah, I think I borrowed that game from my friend, and then he knew the proper sequence, so I think he told me, and I didn't really have to spend too long on that final guy. I remember like constantly calling him up, because like it's full of like puzzles and you just have to do like random things in random places. So I'm always like calling him up, like, how do I get past this part?
There was a part, I always remember there was a part where there was a distinct kind of pattern on the floor that you had to follow, otherwise there was some kind of it was almost like a miniature sandworm from Dune.
Oh, yeah.
It would just reach up and grab you, and then it would eat you, and then it would spit out your skeleton out the other side or something like that. So that was kind of cool.
The part I remember the most that was like super frustrating was like in the first level, you get to the end and you have to like hold up this medallion to this light to like open the staircase.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you want to hold up the medallion? You're like, yes. And then it's like, do you want to read the description or the inscription on the medallion? You're like, sure, why not? And then you die because you like read this ancient, terrible inscription. And it took me so long to figure out, okay, I just hold up the medallion, but then I don't actually read it. And then that's what opens the door.
It was like, what was it? Was there not like a text adventure where, and this'll really age me, but there was what you remember the text adventures used to get, and I don't know if this is when I am showing my age, we used to like go north, and then you used to type in instructions, and there was one for the Hobbit, there was one for the Hulk, and you started off the game in a room in a chair, tied to the chair.
All right.
And you had to get out somehow, but folk just quit on the first room because you're actually meant to type in bite yourself. So you turned into something like you had to type in bite lip, and because you bit your lip hard enough, then you turned into the Hulk. But the number of people that never even kind of got out the first room. Was there any other games that you kind of played like that then? I mean, did you stick with the Genesis, or did you move? Did you ever go? I mean, you must have. Did you not get hold of a SNES or a Super Nintendo? Sorry.
No, I never owned a Super Nintendo. I ended up playing a lot of Super Nintendo games in college because like one of my roommates had one.
All right. Okay.
Or just like when emulators became popular, which was around college as well. And then I go back and play old Super Nintendo games, like all the old Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
But no, like after Genesis, I was one of the few people in the world who bought a Sega Saturn.
Really?
And there are actually some really great games for the Sega Saturn as well.
Oh yeah. Was it Nights into Dreams?
Oh yeah.
I think
that was a great game.
There was that. They also did. They were pretty good at their beat 'em ups as well. And their kind of
Guardian
cartoon
Heroes.
games.
Is a really great beat 'em up. That's still just a fantastic game. And actually, I would say, I don't know if we want to transition to Gloomhaven at some point, but I would say the vast number of branching paths in Guardian Heroes, like every time you beat a level, you'd have like a decision on what to do next, and there were like 7 different endings to this game.
Yeah.
I would say that was an influence. But anyway, we can go back to talking about video games.
That's fine. Well, do you know, I mean, we could just spend the next hour not talking about Gloomhaven.
Sure, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, exactly. You must have talked yourself out. It's like, yeah, okay, let's have another talk about Gloomhaven. No, no, that's not fun. Did you transition? I mean, you went Saturn. Did you go Dreamcast?
By that point I was in college, and I did have my roommate got a Dreamcast, and there were some good games for the Dreamcast as well. It was like I was trying to think of one recently. I think it was called like Bengayo.
All right. Okay.
Like where you're like this little ship like flying around blowing stuff up. But it's just like it's like this weird like Japanese sense of humor. Like everyone's yelling at each other, and it's great. And like when you blow stuff up, like it turns into fruit, and then like I don't know. It was really weird.
We'll reach out to the internet. If you're listening just now and you know what that game is that Isaac's talking about, please tweet at us and Isaac and let us know what game we're kind of missing out. I remember Ikaruga.
Oh yeah, that was
that was
GameCube, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got a GameCube eventually. Yeah.
Did you? That was pretty good. When did you move away from, blasting aliens in outer space to kind of like starting back on the kind of the cardboard side of it? When did that kind of happen?
At some point, I think it was actually in grad school, like when I was starting out in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was before then. No, yeah, before then, like Settlers of Catan started sort of getting popular. So this was, early 2000s, I guess.
So I think, they talk about the war on drugs, but they really should have a war on Catan. Because I think that game gets into more kind of educational establishments than marijuana does, basically.
Well, yeah.
I think that's what California should have done next. Yeah, by all means, look at the route of decriminalizing certain parts of cannabis, but certainly criminalize Catan, because I think that's spreading like a wildfire, and it seems to be unstoppable.
Well, I was sitting in America, and all I had was like Risk and Axis and Allies, right? And so, Catan sort of crossed the ocean, and it was the only thing around that required any amount of thought. So, yeah, people latched onto it.
You sitting at a party and somebody went, Catan? And you went, no, I can't. Oh, go on, just try.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been in that situation where it's like people really want to play Settlers of Catan. There's nothing else to play, and I'm like, okay, I guess I haven't played it in a couple of years. I guess I'll sit down and play it, and then I always regret the decision.
It's like, why can't I roll 4s? Why can't I ever roll 4s?
I just clearly like on the best spots on the board. Like I should be winning right now, but I'm just not.
I'm just sitting there and going, yeah, stone, brilliant, thanks. Anybody want stone? No stone. Do you want stone? You've asked me for the last 6 rounds if you want stone, and you said no. That's no good. Right, okay, what about you? Do you want a sheep? Yeah, I can see that. But then, of course, there's some people that what happens is Catan, their experience is like the drug scene. They try a little bit of Catan, it doesn't always agree with them, and then they decide they're never going to touch any other cardboard again. But then there's other people that once they move on to Catan, they go, that was quite good. But then they get bored of Catan, and then they move on to obviously stronger cardboard. This is the worst analogy ever, but I'm running with it. And I hope you're running with it as well.
I can't understand at this day and age like why people are still into Catan.
Okay.
There's people who like play Catan and then never play anything else. They just like play Catan every week for the rest of their lives. Those are the people I don't understand.
So far, we've done Axis and Allies crowd. Okay. We've just
who else can we piss off?
we've just annoyed the Catan people. Anything about Carcassonne you maybe want to say?
I like Carcassonne. I haven't played it in a while. I remember Gen Con a few years ago. I participated in like the national Carcassonne tournament.
All right.
And whenever I play Carcassonne, like it's usually friendly. Like I just sort of play nice and play to have a good time. But man, those people were cutthroat. And I sort of caught on after a game. And like, so I lost my first game and then won the rest of the games because I'm like, oh, okay, this is how you play Carcassonne competitively. You just are just a dick like every turn. You do everything you can just to block the other person. So I didn't win because I lost that first game.
Did you flip the table as you went?
No.
You did, didn't you? You actually just went, right, well, that's it, I've had enough of you. Whoomph, and walked off. And pushed past the Catan people as you went. Your game's rubbish, Catan, guys. I'm just saying. And, took the lunch money off the Axis and Allies boys. Became the scourge of Gen Con. Quick, there's Isaac. Hide your sheep, and your corn, and your stone. So, where'd you go next? I mean, you're playing Carcassonne. You've tried some Catan.
Yeah.
You kind of like it.
And then,
you get a feel for it.
Yeah, and then at some point I discovered Board Game Geek. Right? And so you sort of discover Board Game Geek, you go to the rankings page, and you're like, I think like Puerto Rico was number 1 at that point, and then there was like Power Grid and Agricola, so I went out and bought all those, and had a great time.
Who's number 1 at the moment?
Pandemic Legacy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. I thought it was you guys.
No, not yet. It's climbing up there.
Like arching your fingers. Not this week, but next week.
Well, like it's shooting up surprisingly fast because the Kickstarter fulfillment is happening.
Oh yeah.
So like every day it's got like another 0.01. So it only needs like, I don't know, 14 more 0.01s to take over Pandemic Legacy. Something
so if
like
you
that.
haven't
Not that
voted,
I'm counting.
then well, you're counting. Not that you know what the next Founders of Gloomhaven kind of announcement's going to be. Guys, vote for us. Go on. You know it makes sense, but you got to watch out because there'll probably be people that have said I would vote, but I can't move my arms after lifting the Gloomhaven box. But we'll get around to that in due time. But yeah, just to say, I don't think I've ever seen so many pictures of a board game next to a child, comparing the size of a board game to a child, and you're wondering, have they altered the perspective in this? Have they actually put the child further in the background? It's like, no, you could effectively put the baby in the box.
Yeah.
That's another thing. So you went out, you bought Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And was this kind of like a watershed moment for you? Were you like, wow, board games can be different?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like Settlers of Catan is awful. Like I enjoyed Settlers of Catan in the day, and Puerto Rico I was better, but I wouldn't say it was like a watershed moment. Like it was just by progression, just keep getting deeper and deeper, and it wasn't like boiling a frog. It wasn't just throwing the frog in boiling water. It was just like slowly over time I was cooked by board games.
Baked, I think the phrase you would use. Is there any games that you look back on with kind of like fond memories that you kind of still play on a regular basis yourself?
Oh, that I play on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Not really. I don't have much time to play games. I mean, I play games like once a week, but it's usually like whatever is new. You gotta keep up on the hot trends and all that. But I mean, I would like to play Agricola more. Agricola is still one of my favorite games. And that was, I think it was Puerto Rico, then Power Grid, and then Agricola. And then, by Agricola, I was definitely hooked.
So you're in favour of a heavy Euro then? Is that kind of more of your jam? Something where you've got stuff to do and there's a little bit of thought behind it and forward planning and stuff? Yeah.
The more thought and planning, the better.
Because Power Grid will bake your noodle.
Yeah.
You know, it is the epitome of lovely, beautiful analysis paralysis, where you can kind of get in there and you can be like, coal! And then that's it.
Yeah. There's a little too much math involved in that game. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but it's like when other people can't handle it, you know, it's just like, you're like, okay, just take your turn already. It's been 10 minutes. Just how many coal do you want to buy? Just make a decision.
Isaac Childres, aggressive board gamer. Who knew? Come on, stupid. You should call your just power station the stupid power station. How about I just take your turn, because we might get out of this place this evening, okay? You're going to lose anyway. You're never going to win with that kind of setup. Come on, just give me my turnover and let me. I'm going to buy this, then I'm going to get that, and then I'm going to get that and convert it into that. Thanks very much. This is how it's going to be playing out.
Yeah, I've been known to be an alpha gamer, so I may have on occasion told people how to play their turns in Power Grid.
Oh dear.
It's like, what you want to do is just buy 3 coal. Just buy 3 coal. That's what you need. Then you'll have enough money to do this other thing and buy the 3 connections you need in the next round. Like, I've already done the math for you. Just do it already.
Get off, and then get off my porch.
Yeah, people generally don't like that though. So.
So when do you go from playing games, bullying people, saying nasty things about Catan, Allies versus Axis, Carcassonne, and then think about, actually I could potentially, if I'm going to kind of be nasty to people when we're playing board games, I'd like to potentially be nasty to people over my own game, because I can change the rules to however I want and tell them that they're wrong all the time. So when did you start?
That was exactly the motivation, yes.
Is that the plan? Have you got like a plan of, okay, do our first board game, and then on the other side of it, at the far wall, there's you sitting in a hollowed out volcano with sharks that have got lasers on them, and you're laughing maniacally in a cardboard throne kind of thing? Is that the kind of journey? Founders of Gloomhaven and Forge War, this is just a cunning ruse. This is world domination that we should be looking out for.
Oh no, I don't think I'm organized enough to take over the world. And I might not be hateful enough either.
Yeah, I suppose. No. But no, I mean, anyway. What made you think? I didn't know. I'm just letting you dig your own pit here. What made you think, turn around from going, okay, I can actually do something with this. Let me get a piece of pen, a pen and a piece of paper, and let's, see if we can invent maybe something myself, put kind of things like that together. I mean, how did that kind of come about?
So, around the time I was, playing Agricola and all that sort of stuff, I eventually got into like Kalis and other games that were high on the list at the time. And at that point, it was just like getting together with my friends, like maybe once every month or two, like, when can we schedule the next game day? It'd be on a weekend, and and then we play these same games over and over because that's all we really had or knew about.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I guess maybe 6 years ago or so, I got involved in a weekly game group just through the website meetup.com. I just discovered that there was like a board game group that met every week that just got together and played games. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Like, I can play games more often with new people. So I started going to that, and that just vastly like increased my exposure to games. so like every week I was playing something new, and I was playing them more often, and really just started to sort of invade my brain, I guess, to the point where I had to make my own game. So like I always try and like have some sort of creative outlet for myself. Like, so before I discovered board games, I was playing like Dungeons and Dragons as well, was a big thing. So I would like DM D&D groups. With my friends, or I started getting into like programming video games, which was a lot more work than I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I'm not a great programmer, so like I was more interested in, designing the games and not actually doing the code, which is the important part.
Exactly.
So,
I just want to make a square. I just want to make a square. And then you're like, hang on, I can just get a piece of paper and draw a square.
Yeah.
I don't have to do any of this y-axis, x-axis rubbish.
Yeah, so I had lofty goals about creating like this, vast RPG with like this really cool story and all these really cool characters, exploring dungeons and all that sort of stuff.
Did you have a name for it?
I think it was called Gathering Storm, which I think is like now the name of a board game that's about to be released. I thought I saw that somewhere in Board Game Geek, but it was original at the time, I thought. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like about like this monk. I don't know if I summarize the story, it's gonna sound stupid, but anyway.
I don't know. Like, what's the monk's name? Stormbringer or something.
No, I think you got to name him. Maybe he didn't have a name.
All right. Okay. Cool. Okay. Nameless protagonist is good.
Yeah, or he was like some sort of like monk shaman, and there's like this weird tower that sort of came up out of the ground, like all of a sudden, and he had to like figure out, why it appeared, because it was like started destroying everything, and so he wanted to stop it. But then it turned out that, like his like the dark half of his own like mind was actually controlling the tower, and so he was fighting against himself the whole time, or something like that.
That's pretty cool.
Like I said.
So how far did you get with it? Did you start programming and go, oh, gee.
I mean, I actually got like a working prototype together, which is kind of ironic thing. I sat down and did all the work. Like it was going to be like a first person sort of thing. Like if you've ever played, I don't know, mostly Genesis games, like the original Phantasy Star, or Shining in the Darkness.
Force.
No, Shining in the Darkness, like that sort of first person perspective where you're like moving around.
Yeah.
So I got all that done, so you could actually like navigate like a maze that I created, that you could easily create, with an array of like a binary array. And then I started working on like the menu system and the combat system, and I actually got it to a point where you could actually play it, like fight against monsters and attack them and cast spells and stuff. But it was all just like, I had never programmed anything before, and everything was just like the extremely broken like code that I just sort of like slammed together and sort of worked most of the time. And and just like every little thing that I did, like every little thing that I wanted to add, like just took like so much time. And so I, eventually drained me of all that sort of energy that I had to create.
Have you ever thought about going back to it at all?
No. I mean,
that's just
yeah. At this point, like coding is not for me, and I know that. But yeah, I think like after that, I decided, okay, I'm going to work on like a simpler game. So I designed like this little puzzle game that was called Lazy Robots.
Oh, okay.
And the whole premise was you had like these. Was it? I think there were 3 different robots, and the whole goal was just like to move boxes around in specific patterns. Like they were working in this factory, and their boss like wanted them to move these boxes around, but they wanted to do it like in the most efficient way possible. So it was a puzzle game where you had to figure out like how to move these boxes by spending the least amount of energy. So like you could move boxes together, and that would be cheaper than moving them by themselves. Or there was a robot that moved them around, and then there was one that just like rotated them. So and then there was one that like teleported them, which was like extremely. It took a lot of energy, but in some cases it was the best thing to do. But anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I more or less finished that game. I never like published it or anything, but yeah.
Why didn't you publish it?
I don't know, because it wasn't like fully complete, and also like I get sort of embarrassed about it. It's like I don't actually want to show this to the world because it's not perfect. Yeah. It's sort of it's a problem I've had like my entire life, is like if I can't make anything, if I can't make something perfect, then I don't want to show it to anybody.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to like go out and just like do something like in public, like where it might fail in front of everybody.
Oh, that's
so that's why I never. Yeah.
You should. I don't know. I think one day you should. There'll be software houses that would probably give you lots of money.
Oh no, these are like just simple Flash games.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so after I was working on that for a while, and then I started getting into board games, and then my creative energy, once it sort of petered out on those projects, went into making board games.
How many did you make? How many did you go through, scrap? Did you do that? From what you've said, did you go, right, okay, so he does this, and then he moves this, and you manage these risks, and no, this isn't going to work, and then you put it to one side, and then you started something else? Or were you quite focused on a set number, you're quite focused on a set game from the beginning? Was your first effort, was that anywhere close to kind of like Forge War, or were you working on a couple of different things and one of them became Forge War? No,
that was the surprising thing, is really the first thing that I worked on was Forge War.
Okay.
And sort of the concept just came to me all at once. Like I had been playing lots of board games, and they just sort of coalesced in a unique way in my head, and I was like, I think this could work. I'm gonna pursue it, and it ended up working out.
Because do you want to explain? Do you want to explain a little bit about Forge War? We were talking before we started, and we said the first time that me and Colin talked about Forge War was way back at the beginning of our show, and it was meant to be episode 3, but we never got it played. So I think, this was like a year and a half ago or something, and I remember us publicly saying, yeah, we're going to be playing Forge War, and then we're going to do an episode about it, and then publicly apologising to you on Twitter to say, sorry Isaac, we didn't play the game, we'll put it on kind of like the next episode. But for people that know you from Gloomhaven, but haven't, we are going to actually not talk about Gloomhaven the whole episode. Me and Isaac spoke before, and you guys have had enough Gloomhaven to last you for a long time. But for the people that haven't or aren't aware of Forge War, do you want to give a kind of quick rundown about kind of what it's about?
Sure. So it's a very long game, and it's a heavy Euro about going into a mine and collecting minerals and resources, and then using those resources to forge weapons. Then giving those weapons to adventurers who go out on quests. And then they complete those quests and give you points and more resources that you can sort of plug back into your engine, and just keep killing monsters and getting points.
And there's no war. There
is no war. That's true. I chose the name for alliterative purposes. I thought it sounded cool.
Right.
Yeah. That's my defense.
I don't think you have to defend it, because obviously you went, it's like you're talking to me who's never actually done a Kickstarter. So just say, shut up, come on, get funded, okay? People have it, people play the game.
It's a real game.
People enjoy it. Yeah, it's a real game, I made it. How many games have you made? None? Okay, well, I've made lots. It's kind of interesting, because what I found when we were playing it, and I'd advise of people that haven't played it before, and I know I'm not just being sycophantic and being nice to you because you're on the show, but it's kind of a nice little kind of modular game where to learn the individual parts of the game are very, very simple, but then it's that next stage of once you've learned the individual parts and how they interact with people that becomes kind of very, very interesting, because there's a lovely kind of like the first section with the mine where you've got like your overseers who are looking after the workers, and then they're able to claim a certain amount of resources. But they do like a hop, they do like a jump over the other workers to turn them in, and then that gives you your resources, and then you can use your resources to make certain things. So you can get plans to make weapons, and then you can make those weapons, and then you use the weapons to give you enough strength and defense to go and make sure you can match up to win a quest. And it takes a reasonable amount of time to play, but it's not. I didn't think it was that heavy in terms of heavy brain-busting Euro thing. It kind of surprised me. The number of components were quite daunting.
Yeah.
But once you played it, me and Colin and Stuart played it, and once we were playing it, we were like, well, this is actually a nice, not relatively quite straightforward game to just get through. Kind of everything kind of clicked together. But it must have been a complicated game to kind of put together. I mean, did it take a long time to go from the first ideas into the finished product? Did it go through kind of lots of iterations and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, the first sort of prototype that I created, was like pretty similar in terms of mechanics. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was always the mine part, which functions at least similarly, like throughout all the iterations. I made some refinements. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was always, this abstract spatial game of moving these overseers around and jumping over workers and getting resources for how many of them that you jumped over. Yeah. And then the quest system and that, I mean, so the whole economy of collecting these resources and then turning them into weapons which gave you power for these quests that sort of resolved over time. Like that was all in the initial setup. The length, so I believe it or not, was decreased significantly from the first iteration. Really? I think there used to be like 10 rounds per age instead of 6, so it lasts about twice as long.
Because it does actually have in the box, where most boxes have 60 minutes to an hour. This has got Tuesday through a Thursday side of it.
You can finish tomorrow, or you can finish next week.
Yeah, exactly. Book some holidays. You're going to be a while. But obviously in Gloomhaven, you obviously learned from that mistakes and decided to make a much shorter game. But it's good fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun with it. It's always one we've got to get back to the table again, because the components were all nice. The board is magnificently huge. The worker meeples are fantastic because they've got moustaches on them. Yeah. So you've got these moustached workers who all have whips. So they're basically like the bad guys in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. But you put that out on Kickstarter, and it went ahead, and it funded. There was it funded to a decent level.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when you kind of, because that was still back. Kickstarter it was getting there, but it wasn't the massive explosion that it seems to be at the moment.
Yeah.
Were you quite surprised of how, it got there, it seemed to fund really quickly, relatively quickly, quite well. It was interesting enough a game. So were you surprised with how well it did?
Yeah, definitely. So at the time, I was sort of one of the first, sort of bigger, heavier, component heavy Euros that went on Kickstarter. You had a lot of card games or maybe simple Euros, or more like gateway level Euros like Stonemaier games. And so I was really concerned that the market wasn't there on Kickstarter for this really heavy involved game that took a long time to play. And I mean the main point of surprise came for me the day before the Kickstarter launched, when Richard Hamm of Rada Runs Through sent me his review of the game, his preview that he had shot. And he's the whole reason that I funded, because he just went crazy for the game and, said that it was the best thing he'd played all year or something like that. And I sort of leveraged that quote to its highest potential. And
I think it took up about 3/4 of the actual campaign screen.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was a Kickstarter tastemaker, and so he funded the project pretty much by himself, and ended up being 400% funded by the end of it. And
he did. It's actually got the biggest font that you can get on Kickstarter. It's as easily the best game of the year.
Yeah.
And it is in the biggest font you can get. That's amazing. You weren't kidding when you said that. But no, I mean, it went on. I mean, it, as I say, it funded really quickly. And I think the fascinating thing about it was, you were right. I mean, I remember looking at the time and thinking, this is different from what else was kind of seen. I mean, at the same time, there was things like The Captain is Dead was out there. Heavy Steam was another one. They were out. That was a fairly kind of heavyish type game, but I think I mean, when I saw it, I think it looked different and it looked really, really meaty, and that's kind of what made me think, I'm kind of interested in chucking a buck at this, and he's kind of weren't wrong. I mean, did that? How was the fulfillment and stuff like that? Because it seemed, again, it came out when it came out, arrived. It was, was there any kind of production things that went on with that, or was it pretty plain sailing?
I remember it just taking a really long time to finish all the graphic design and all of that in order to actually get the file sent to the printer. So I think, if I remember correctly, it funded in maybe May or June. I think it was June. Yeah. And then I was telling people, it'll be out by, September, October or something like that. And then it ended up coming out the following April or something, May or April, or March or April. So it took about 10 months, I think, to fulfill when I was promising half that. So, I mean, that's part of Kickstarter, and I'm still dealing with that with with Gloomhaven. But it was, I remember that just being sort of a significant problem. It was mainly because we had gotten done most of the graphic design with another graphic designer, and then he sort of left the project during the Kickstarter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was when I needed him most to do a bunch of graphics, he just sort of disappeared. All right. I mean, he was a friend of my wife's, and I still know him, but he just got really busy.
Whoa.
It was just he got busy. He had a real job, and couldn't help as much as I needed him to help. And so I found another graphic designer, And then we ended up sort of like redoing all the graphic design, which was great. Like it ended up looking a lot better. But yeah, it took a long time. It was stressful. Once it got to the printers, though, I remember, I mean, there are always things that go wrong. I can't remember what went wrong on that project.
It's not a Kickstarter if it doesn't. It's not a successful Kickstarter. It's like, how did it go? Smooth, easy.
Yeah.
Now you've not done Kickstarter.
Yeah, I remember like the European fulfillment was like really bad. I don't remember why. And then also all the international fulfillment too. Like the company like didn't package the game, and they just like sent it out in bags or something, and it got like just horribly beat up.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I learned some lessons. There were problems with my next project, and I learned some more lessons, and it's a constant learning process.
So, I mean, you go from a game which is, people would say it's slightly complicated, but it's good fun. Everybody, okay. Earlier this evening, I put out a tweet and I said, okay, let's, ask. I have Isaac coming on the show, to ask me some questions. I think the question that comes up again and again and again and again, and yeah. I think the first person that asked it, and it's the most cliched question in the world, but it was okay. It's just how, Isaac, how did your brain work that you managed to kind of like, you got, I put down a piece of paper and I'm lucky if I can draw like, 5 fingers on a hand. you obviously put pen to paper and there's just, it's like almost Rumpelstiltskin. You're just like, there's this gold kind of coming out, because that's what people seem to be asking. Just how did he manage to do it? You'd fulfilled Forge War. There were things that you had to get sorted out. So what made you think, actually, see the next one? This is going to get bigger. Let's go bigger and more complicated. I mean, did it start off like that, or did it grow arms and legs in terms of, what happened with Gloomhaven?
Yeah, it grew arms and legs in a certain extent. Like, I never expected it to be that big. I knew I wanted to go bigger. I knew I wanted to make something. I guess what I say sometimes is I wanted to make something that people couldn't ignore.
Was that what the box size
that's like
was?
My
If you got, is that a
sort of my business policy is make things that people can't ignore. Right, so I made Forge War, and it was a big game. It weighs 7 pounds, which is a lot. Like
it's a small
game.
It's a newborn baby. So what did you do? Decide you moved up from newborn baby into toddler?
Right. That is often what my wife calls Gloomhaven is our baby. It's our child that we made together over a period of 2 years. But no, like when I made Forge War, it was a reasonable success on Kickstarter, and it was released, and it got some good reviews. It got some not so good reviews, and then it was more or less forgotten. Which is just sort of the nature of the hobby at this point. Like, there's so many games that come out. Yeah. It's just hard to have any sort of lasting appeal. I mean, the initial print run like sold out, and I immediately tried to do like a second print run. But by the time that I had got that produced and sort of back out into retail, like people had mostly forgotten about it, and so I'm still trying to sell all the copies of that second print run that I made. But anyway, obviously...
So where can you buy Forge War if you do want a copy?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's available for distributors to buy. It's just like whether distributors and retailers actually want to buy it and put it in their store. Which it has seen like a bit of resurgence now because of the success of Gloomhaven. Like I do have retailers like stocking it just because like it's the same designer, so like, oh, we don't have any Gloomhaven, but you can buy this other thing this guy made, maybe that'll be the same. I don't know.
Exactly. Can I show you something in light orange and red instead? Yes, you can. Do you have a penchant for miners with moustaches and whips? Yes, I do. Can I interest you in this? It says war. Don't worry, there's no war. It's fine. It's fine. No, but that was, as I say, it was Mike Barnes, a friend of the show, who asked the question, how do you even start designing something like Gloomhaven? And he actually uses the words masterpiece.
So you start small. Right? So I decided I wanted to make a dungeon crawl. And so I just made a single dungeon and 4 characters and just, saw how it went. And, after some refinements, it went pretty well. And I sort of just kept building on that single thing just over and over and over until, I weighed 22 pounds.
But there's the intricacies behind it. If you looked inside your head, is it like you kind of, when you see kind of graphical representations of how a brain works with neurons and stuff, and there's just things flashing over, but an awful lot quicker? Because this isn't a board game, Isaac. This is like people are like waxing lyrical about how amazing this is, but at the same time they're saying, how did you make that? You're saying, we just took a couple of guys and we just built upon it. People just don't build games like Gloomhaven. Otherwise every game would be Gloomhaven. Well, was it back to you saying, if I'm going to be putting something out there, I want it to be perfect? Did you keep reworking it due to maybe doubting if it was good enough that you needed to add all the extra bits on? Did that play into it at all?
I don't know. It's just I wanted to make the game that I wanted to play, and what I wanted to play was this epic campaign that fulfilled people. Like, it wasn't just play it 10 times and then you're done. That it felt like there was like a real narrative to it, and you could make real choices. And I don't know. I guess it's as silly as this might sound. It's like no one told me that I couldn't. Right? It's like you say that people, like, not everyone makes Gloomhaven and I guess that's true, but I don't see why they couldn't. Like, I think it might just be because people didn't realize that it could be done, right? That you could make a board game of this size. And I don't know, maybe that sounds silly, but it's like, what I think about is, you've got people playing like Dungeons and Dragons like across the world, and you've got amazing DMs who come up with just brilliant campaigns, like far more brilliant than anything I could come up with. But they just do it for, their group of friends, and they're satisfied with that, and that's wonderful. And what I wanted to do was like make a D&D campaign that I could give to the world. As stupid as that sounds, but it's just like, no, I ran D&D campaigns, and I've always felt like, man, I wish I could share this with more people. And so that's what I did. And, I had some backgrounds, in making board games from my first game. And so, like, I had a little bit of experience there. I don't think I couldn't have ever, like, started with Gloomhaven, because there were just some fundamental lessons, like, not only about, like, manufacturing, but also just about design that I needed to learn first. But yeah, other than that, it was just, that little bit of board game experience combined with, the beauty of Kickstarter, and that you can make whatever you want, like, as long as there are enough people that also believe in it. And so, I made this ridiculous thing and I put it up on Kickstarter, and people seemed to agree that it was awesome. And then I spent, another year and a half making it.
When did you first start to realize that this was actually getting an awful lot of attention? When was there people you started to realize that actually there's a lot of people talking about this? Did you get more people asking to speak to you, to interview you? Were there people asking for potential review copies? I mean, when was it you went, oh, I've actually maybe made a thing that lots and lots of people are kind of really talking about?
Yeah, it was sort of weird because while the success of the first Kickstarter was great, and but yeah, it was then like a year and a half more of development where I had like pre-orders slowly coming in. I'd get a handful of pre-orders here and there, and that was great because I needed more money to continue to fund this thing and get all the copies printed that I wanted to get printed. But it wasn't until like maybe a month or two before the game was actually in stores, I started sending it out to reviewers for, to make sure that they had the time to play it, in order to get their review up in time for when it was actually released. And then when the buzz started to just build up like surprisingly fast, like around that, like people started, like reviewers like Man vs. Meeple and Drive Through Review and Paul Grogan has of Gaming Rules has always been a huge supporter of the game as well, and they just sort of all started talking about it and like this is amazing, this is groundbreaking, and it's just like the level of like buzz and hype just went like through the roof from there. And I remember like getting a call from my distribution broker who like handles all my distribution, handles all the sales, and he's like, so how many of these did you print? Like, cause I need a lot more. At one point, he tells me, which has sort of become infamous on Board Game Geek, right? That like, we've got like 2,000 copies available for distribution, and he's got like 25,000 orders. So he's only able to fulfill like 8% of the orders that he has. And I'm like, goodness. And we were both just like just dumbfounded. We were like, I guess we need to print more, but like this is ridiculous. Like it's never happened before. That level of buzz that just went crazy. That's sort of when I realized that this was gonna be like bigger than I expected. I always expected it to do well, but I never expected it to do as well as it actually did.
Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules, he's asked us a question anyway, so it's a good time. He says he'd like to know when the Gloomhaven tea towels are coming out. Right.
So we've got a whole merchandising line that I'm working on. Includes tea towels and normal towels as well, not just tea towels.
That's good.
Maybe some Cragheart plushies. My wife is really into that. She wants to see some Cragheart plushies made. So it's I don't have the time to do it now, but it's in the works along with everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you on the back of that, are there plans for a lore or art book for the world of Gloomhaven? That's from Ron Fraser, who is Animus Maelstrom on Twitter. So thank you for your question there, Ron.
So the thing about art books is, if we can offend more people.
Let's do that.
No, I don't care.
It's been 25 minutes. You don't care.
I don't care about art books, and I understand that some people care about art books. I've always sort of ran my company with the idea of I'm just like selling things to myself, if that makes sense. Like I'm just making stuff that I want, and I don't want art books, so it's not really a priority for me. maybe that's the wrong
That's
way to
okay.
run a business, but that's sort of what I've been doing so far. No, I mean, like, I think like an art book or like just a book of lore would be interesting. I don't know. I always just feel weird about doing stuff like that because, like, I'm a board game designer. Like, I'm here to make board games. And if I'm like selling you other stuff, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm exploiting people in a way if I'm just like trying to sell them.
Right.
Like upsell them on stuff like, oh, you can get this board game, but you can also get this T-shirt. Like it's like,
And remember the balloons and the cups for the kids.
right? Yeah,
You are doing Gloomhaven balloons, but you're calling them Balloon Havens, though. Tell me you're doing that.
Balloon Haven. No, that
What? What?
no. Okay, yeah, that can be added to the merchandise line.
Yay! Yeah. Balloon Havens are coming out.
Balloon Havens.
Balloon Havens, write it down.
But yeah, I mean, even like metal coins, like stuff that I just don't find necessary in board games. Like I feel weird about selling it, because like I want to sell people games. Like that's what my focus is. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So maybe at some point there might be a book of lore and artwork. Maybe if I ever get over that hang up. And there is, once I create like more artwork and lore for people to look at, like I think that'll be interesting, but no plans currently to give you a long-winded answer to that question.
Okay. Kenny, who is the player to the left, that's at player to the left, says, what are the retail plans for Gloomhaven's second print run?
Right, yeah. So that's a big question that everyone is interested in because those who weren't in on the second Kickstarter are now, or just missed it, for whatever reason, now want to get the game and they want to know how. So we're still figuring it out, is what I can say. Like there have just been a stupid amount of delays through the manufacturing company, and it's just been incredibly frustrating. It's basically been the number one pain in my backside for this entire year is just how slow this manufacturing company is being. So, we're getting all the Kickstarter copies out. They're currently shipping out all the retail copies. We did a sort of distributor pre-sale. So like we're sending copies directly to distributors. Based on those pre-sales, and it's like a lot of copies, like 20,000 copies or more than that. Like it should be enough to cover demand, and so I don't think people should worry about like not finding a copy once it actually hits retail. Like that shouldn't be a concern. Like so it shouldn't be like, what is the exact day that it's coming out in resale, because if I don't get it that day, it'll immediately sell out. Like I don't think that's going to be the issue.
No, I think the issue is going to be getting it back to your car.
Right, exactly.
I think that's going to be one.
Yeah, it's like why didn't you just buy it on Kickstarter
and
it gets shipped directly to your door? And you don't have to worry about that sort of thing.
Getting sued by shopkeepers who've put their back out trying to move their 5 copies of Gloomhaven. You've caused subsidence in my building. I'm suing you, Mr. Childress.
So, but yeah. Anyway, like the deal with the retail pre-order though is that like. In order to be fair to all distributors, like we have to wait until every distributor has their copies before we release them, which has been another pain because I don't know, like the shipments got turned around, and so like we thought they would all be going out, but then there's some like big ones who still don't have their copies yet. So anyway, it's just a mess. But I mean, it's just a mess of timing, not necessarily like a logistical mess. I mean, what I'm saying is that when the time comes, which we're not sure what it will be, unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be in time for Christmas, which is the biggest disappointment, I think, to people. Yeah. But when those copies all arrive, then it'll be available, and we're still figuring out when that'll happen.
Yeah, but it's not going to be a surprise if you got it for Christmas anyway, because you'll be able to guess straight away. Because, I can't see the tree. What's that? And it's like, that'll be Gloomhaven. Where's my child? I mean, have you seen... I know we said it earlier, but have you seen the many pictures of, like, little kids next to Gloomhaven yet?
Yeah. They're the best. Yeah, like the children in the boxes is I think the best.
Exactly.
Also the cats in the boxes.
Yeah, cats, dogs, elephants. Right. Small families. Rob Rouse at Loud Blue Peg says, and he's shouting at us.
He says, shouts. That's all he does.
Word on the street is Isaac cheats at Terra Mystica. I don't even know if that's his voice. I'm just making it up. Is there any truth to this? And he's asking for a friend. Do you cheat at Terra Mystica, Isaac?
No, I
okay,
don't.
No. There you go.
No, yeah,
go,
I would like to point out once again to Rob Rouse. It's not Terra Mystica, but we played a Gaia project at Essen, a month or two ago, and I would just like to point out to him once again that I actually was playing under a handicap, so it was like the reverse cheating in that game, and I still beat him.
So Rob, there you go. You've just been served. There you go. Moving on, Johan Lindgren, who is at Jolengren. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is it true that the name of the Gloomhaven world is Planet Bob?
Right, so I think that was a thing on Board Game Geek earlier this week.
Right.
People were trying to figure out the name of the world, or just coming up with weird guesses like Planet Bob. The slightly embarrassing truth is that I don't have a name for the world at this point. I haven't had to make it. Maybe that's like the first thing that some people do when they start creating a world is they name it, but that's not my style. I'm waiting for something to come to me, and we'll see what happens.
So Bob it is then. Could Taza and Dados, Tazi Dados at Tazi Dados says, could we see a translation to other languages in the third edition? That's a big ask, isn't it? I mean, that's a lot of cards to go through and translate. Yeah.
So I am talking to a couple publishers about localizations in different languages. There hasn't been a lot of progress, and but yeah, it'll happen eventually. I can't tell you when it'll happen, but I mean, there's the demand out there, and there are definitely publishers willing to take on the project. It's mostly just a matter of me putting in the time to make sure that everything is done well, like up to my standards, right? Because everything has to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, would you consider kind of handing out parts of? I mean, one of the questions that we've got is which is Bryce Garrett, Brycer_29 says, do you have any plans to expand Gloom? Do you have any plans to expand the Gloomhaven universe? Why wasn't I able to say that first time round? I mean, would you consider kind of handing out kind of ideas and people going away and actually producing games based on that, or are you, I would like to keep an eye on what's happening with this IP?
Right, yeah, it's my baby, and I'm not ready necessarily for a babysitter yet. It's not old enough. I don't know where that analogy went, but anyway, I have definite plans to expand the universe. Obviously, I mean, we were already coming out with Founders of Gloomhaven, and the actual expansion to Gloomhaven is a well-known secret at this point. Not really a secret at all. Like, I announced it on Twitter and everywhere else.
I mean, let's face it, when you started the conversation and I could see you on Skype, you were wearing your Here's Gloomhaven's expansion t-shirt, so... there will definitely be more things
for Gloomhaven in the future. You just have to be patient because it takes time, and I've got a lot of other stuff to do.
PvP rules is something Def Juck is asking about. Have you considered creating PvP rules or scenarios?
Well, so I mean, there was PvP promised in the original Kickstarter back when I thought that it was a good idea, and it didn't work. Like the classes weren't balanced for PvP like at all.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't. I didn't feel like PvP was the reason people would be playing the game, and so I didn't want to put the effort and however much extra components it would have taken to make it work. And I still don't really have any interest in revisiting that. Some people have sort of made their own PvP rules on Board Game Geek that you could probably search out. Basically, it would require like rebalancing a lot of the classes, like changing a lot of their abilities to make them less powerful and changing their initiative values. Lots of stuff. So it would basically like be an entirely new deck for each character class, which I'm not really interested in doing, but maybe somebody will take it upon themselves to do it.
Well, that's a lot of work. And the last question that we have, is it legitimate to use a combo with the cards and to never get exited? And that's from Def Juck as well. I don't know.
Well, the answer is yes, but that is a spoiler, which some people get really freaked out about. So maybe in post you can just like edit out the word of that class that you just said.
I think I've got. We have. Yeah, thanks, man, for like imagine doing that. You just spoiler free shit.
Oh no, yeah, you'll get people angry at you if you left that in.
I know, I don't want that. I mean, let's face it, we've already angered the Axis.
Oh yeah, we don't want to eliminate like the one fan base we have left, which are the Gloomhaven fans.
Oh dear. I mean, let's put Gloomhaven to bed because I mean it probably sleeps in a full-size bed. And yes, the size jokes are going to keep coming, but you went on to do Founders of Gloomhaven, which surprised people. I think it surprised a lot of people that had maybe missed out on Gloomhaven and then jumped in on Founders and kind of got a completely different flavour of the game kind of altogether. Was it important when you did Founders of Gloomhaven that you were aiming for something which was pretty much a lot different from what you did with Gloomhaven? Was that the aim in mind? Did you say, right, bit of a clean sweep, let's do something different? Was that your thoughts behind it?
After I have lots of, since I started designing and I designed Forge War, like I come up with lots of ideas and most of them aren't good, but some of them are, and I pursue them, and then they turn out to not be good, and it's a process. And after it was like the week, or I don't know, it was very soon after we like were done with Gloomhaven and like sent all the files to the printer. I sort of finally had more time to really start, focusing on another design, and this new idea just sort of came to me, and I was really excited about it, and decided to run with it. And that's where Founders of Gloomhaven came from. And it wasn't. My design process isn't like I want to sit down and make this. Like I just, I just like these ideas just sort of come to me, usually because of other games that I'm playing, whether they're board games or video games. Just sort of take inspiration from everything I experience, and then my brain naturally sort of turns them around and says, like, how can we make a board game out of this? And so, this idea for this sort of logistical board game came to me, and so that's what I decided to work on next because it was interesting to me. So it wasn't necessarily a matter of like, let's do something different from Gloomhaven. It was just like, yeah, this is really cool. How can I develop this? And also, it was important to me though to like put it in the world of Gloomhaven, which doesn't have a name. Bob, yeah. Just because I am interested in sort of expanding upon that world, and telling different stories in it. So yeah, became the founders of Gloomhaven.
And it went on, and you did $500,000,
right? Yeah, that was pretty great.
I mean, would you, after the back of Gloomhaven, were you kind of like, well, it's going to do okay? But was that the kind of the figure you were thinking about, or did it massively kind of, did it achieve expectations, or did it do less than what you expected?
It was really hard to gauge, right? Because it's such a different game. Like, I'm like, it was pretty soon after I had done the second printing Kickstarter for Gloomhaven, where, we had like 40,000 backers. It was silly, like, but I had no idea like how many of those people would follow me to this, completely different game. And I also like didn't want to trick them into following me. Like, I tried to be as clear as I possibly could that this is a completely different game, and just because you like Gloomhaven, you're not going to like this.
Yeah. I remember Rado doing a video, and on his roundup video about Founders of Gloomhaven, he specifically said, he almost warned people and said, listen, if you're here for Gloomhaven, this is not what this is, kind of thing. Yeah. Even though he was kind of praising it, he was kind of warning people to say, check out, watch the video, look how it plays, because this is a completely different kind of offering. But people stormed in, and
I was expecting maybe a couple 100,000, so yeah, like a few thousand backers. I think it definitely did a lot more than I was expecting, which was great.
And for people that haven't, can you still get hold of a copy of Founders if you haven't pledged? Have you got any kind of late pledges going on?
Yeah, you can still pre-order it. Like, if you go to the Kickstarter page, there's a big button right at the top. That pre-order link is still active. Should still be up, I don't know, for another month or so.
Yeah. What's the kind of the elevator pitch for Founders then? What would you say to people if they're looking for, what would they expect from Founders of Gloomhaven?
So Founders is, at its heart, it's a tile placement city building game. But everyone is sort of collectively building the same city, and each player controls different basic resources, and you have to work together, like use other people's resources, and which are just like these tiles on the board, and combine them to create more advanced resources, which are going to earn you like lots of points when you connect those buildings up to other buildings out on the board. So I think the main draw of the game is the sort of, the spatial aspect of it, and sort of the deep planning and all of that is involved in sort of creating the city, but also just the high level of interaction between players, especially for like a more strategic thinky Euro.
Yeah.
You're always getting in each other's way, or using other people's roads or other people's buildings, and sort of reacting to them, and not just out on the board, but also with the card mechanics. So it plays a little. I like to call it like a combination of like Puerto Rico and Concordia, where you sort of have this hand of cards, and you're playing a card from your hand to take an action. Like Concordia, but like Puerto Rico, like when you do an action, everyone else at the table will get to follow your action. And do like a lesser version of that. And so there's also a lot of player interaction there, where you're constantly trying to like, figure out like what other people are going to do, and how you can take advantage of that.
I mean, one of the things I see about Euros, or one of the things that can often kind of make a Euro kind of lessen it, is the lack of kind of interactivity.
Right.
Sometimes in games is what you're doing is you're building your own little engine, and the only interaction you have with a player is who's going to get the resource kind of first, and then that'll have an effect on your game. But apart from that, I mean, I've seen it with Power Grid on occasion. I've seen it terraforming Mars. I've seen that kind of have an effect on people as well. So was it important to you to make sure you had that level of kind of ongoing cause and effect interactivity when people were playing, as opposed to here's my land, here's your land, let's see what happens and let's see who gets the more kind of points then?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that player interaction is important in any game you're playing. I mean, otherwise, just why aren't you just playing it by yourself? Like you're playing a game at a table with a group of people to interact with them, and so the more interaction, the better usually.
And if people want to get hold of the game, is it $55? Is it going for? Am I right or wrong?
No, it's just $50.
$50. All right. Okay,
yeah.
That's fine. Okay. So you can still jump in, and you said that the kind of the late backers can still get in. Are you saying kind of middle? Is it middle December? Or are you looking into January now before you're closing things off?
Yeah. When we had talked before, I was thinking about cutting it off in December, but then I sort of realized that I was printing off lots of copies, and I didn't really need to know like an exact count before we started going to the printers, so we could leave it open for another month or so until we actually have to start shipping them out. So it'll probably be open until January.
Cool. Okay. What's next for you? I mean, you are you have done the classic. You've stormed Kickstarter Fort. You've made it your own. You have produced, several well-funded Kickstarters. I mean, what's next for Isaac Childres? I mean, have you? Because you're a physicist for your day job, yeah? Is that correct?
Well, I went to grad school in physics, and I got a PhD, but I never actually held a real job in physics.
Oh, right.
So after I graduated, I immediately just started working on Gloomhaven full time, which was about three years ago. Yeah.
So you're full time. Okay. It's just you saying I'm a physicist. It was like that. Cool. I was just wondering what else it does, and it's like, no, I'm actually a board game designer.
I mean, I have a PhD in physics. I'm technically a physicist, maybe. I don't know. I also have a degree in journalism, so maybe I'm a journalist as well. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh no, that means you're going to write stuff about me, and that could be bad. But is there a time? Have you thought about kind of just say, do you know what? Next game is going to be a casual fun game about dolphins trying to catch fish, kind of thing, Or is there a casual game that you thought about putting out there and doing something completely different, or are you still interested in kind of going down the Euro route to see what else is out there?
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible. But yeah, the rule is just to do what I want to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my plans are to, I'm working on, the expansion for Gloomhaven right now, because that's what I want to do. Yeah. I want to sort of go back to that and make more scenarios and create a whole new campaign that people are going to be excited about. And then, who knows what'll happen after that.
Might just move on to something else. You might get those computer games up and running again.
Maybe.
We might actually see the robot game out in there. That would be kind of cool. Hey, you could turn the robot game into a miniature board game.
Yeah, there's a lot of calculation, behind the scenes calculation.
Ah, right, okay. Well, we'll have to scrap
I think it'd be too much math for a good board game.
Cool. I am aware I've taken up an awful lot of your time, so I appreciate that. I kind of appreciate you kind of coming on, and I do ask this of everybody, but I mean, if you were stuck in the zombie apocalypse.
All right.
And you're running down the street away from the undead with their greying and flaying limbs screaming at you as you run past, and you go into an alleyway, and you run down the alleyway, and you notice on the right hand side there's a slightly open door, so hearing the hunger of the undead behind you, you run inside the door, you slam the door behind you, and you find yourself what appears to be a huge, rather well-stocked board game emporium. Okay?
All right.
It seems to have everything available. It's got first editions of games, second editions of games. It's got every expansion you could ever dream of. In the middle of the floor, there appears to be like a trolley that appears to be very fast, very maneuverable, but has a rather smallish kind of tray. You're able to take 3 games with you to continue on your journey. You can take any games at all. They can be of any year, any genre, and you can have as many expansions as you want, but you can only take 3. Now, you'll be going into communities and you'll be meeting single people on the way, trying to get their way home. You'll be going into communities where you can... But the main thing is that the question, would you like to play a board game? The answer is always going to be a resounding yes. What 3 board games do you take with you in the zombie apocalypse, Mr. Isaac Childres?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what the zombie apocalypse, what its relevance is. So, like, do I need these games to fend off the zombies in any way? Like,
no.
Should I be looking for sharp objects?
No.
Okay. So
no,
really, it could be any sort of apocalypse.
It could be an apocalypse. It could be a chicken apocalypse. It could be, a herd of foul weather has caused all the chickens to mutate and want thirst on human blood and place revenge for their brothers and sisters that have been slaughtered over the years for the poultry and egg trade. They are they're trotting about the street, pecking to death anyone that gets along their way. You have managed to go down an alleyway where on the right hand side there's an open door. Upon going into the door, you're in an emporium, and guess what? There's a red trolley in the middle of the floor, and there's all the board games and all the expansions in the middle. Isaac, what 3 games do you take?
Okay, but I still don't need to kill the chickens. Like, I don't need.
You don't have to kill. No, it's fine. But you just want to have the board games, right? Okay, Isaac. If you could have any 3 game board games, what board games you have, regardless of the apocalypse, right? Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, number 1, I don't want to be self-promoting, but I would definitely take Gloomhaven. Not just because it would offer countless hours of entertainment, but also because.
You could sleep in it.
Well, yeah, it would certainly have practical uses. But also because like it would allow me to, continue my creative process. Like because, the box of Gloomhaven is the ideal game to have when you're prototyping for making like expansions to Gloomhaven.
Yeah, but I can just imagine you going back to that same store in 15 years and you've got a long flowing beard and you've got like worn down fingers and you've got a pencil in your hand and you're going through all the cards that you wanted to change to rebalance the game and you're scoring things out on every single available copy and writing in the correct stuff kind of thing. But you can take Gloomhaven, so we'll lock, Vanessa will lock that down. Next game.
Let's see here.
You could take Terra Mystica to annoy Rob.
Well, yeah. So it's gonna be Terra Mystica or Gaia Project. And
all right. Okay.
I'm not sure which one. I've only played Gaia Project twice, and I think it might be a better game. But there's just so much nostalgia for Terra Mystica, so it's hard to decide. But you don't need both of them, so you only need to take one. I think I would take Gaia Project. I think I have faith that it is a good game, and the more I play it, and obviously I would be getting lots of opportunities to play it in the Chicken Apocalypse. Yeah, so I think I would take Gaia Project over Terra Mystica.
And the last game.
Last game.
This is the doozy. The chickens are at the door. They're pecking on the glass. They're staring at you with their dead eyes.
I think I would need to take something that would appeal to a larger group of people.
Okay.
Obviously I would want to play Gaia Project, but maybe not everybody else will want to play Gaia Project.
Well, no, they'll be happy to play it. They'll be glad. If you want to take that one, you can take that one as well.
No. So, no, it's a lighter game. I mean, because you're not always feeling like a heavy game, so I would want something lighter. I'm trying to think of like what my ideal light game is.
There's a tinkle of glass as one of the beaks manages to break through.
I don't know. I'm gonna go with Masquerade.
There you go. Okay.
So Masquerade. It's one of my favorite party games. It's very it's just a great game where it's not always about bluffing, but it's also about actually paying attention and trying to figure out where the roles are. Yeah, we'll go Masquerade.
Excellent. That's brilliant. The chicken apocalypse. Oh my goodness! I've never been asked. Well, what's the point of this? This doesn't have any effect. Why didn't you just say I walked into a board game store? Because the zombie thing was meant to be fun. I didn't realise I'd have to be defending my own idea.
I just wanted to know the rules. I want to know the parameters of my choices.
Of course you do.
If I needed to take Gloomhaven so I could bash zombies over the head.
I mean, the expansion. We've got one last. Michael Keith Bennett says, what format do you see the anticipated box expansion for Gloomhaven taking? Adding new classes, expanding cards options for existing classes, expanding current quest content, or branching off with brand new story arcs? Is it a bit of everything?
Right, yeah, it's a bit of everything. Sorry, I might have missed the question in there, but yeah, the expansion is going to be everything. Cool. It won't be standalone, so you'll still need the original box and all the components in there, because my main goal is to reduce the size of the box. Like I don't want to manufacture another box the size of Gloomhaven, so we're gonna decrease the size by reusing components.
Excellent. Okay, listen, thank you very, very much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and we did end up speaking about Gloomhaven, but it's all kind of good. Where can people find you on the interweb nets, Mr. Childress?
I use Twitter occasionally. It's just at Cephalofair, and you can go to my website cephalofair.com, where I write a blog post every couple weeks, let's say. I don't know. It just depends on how I'm feeling and how much time I have. But usually they're entertaining. They're good reads, so you can check that out. Or just, I'm on Board Game Geek a lot as well. Okay. Just I'm Cephalofair on Board Game Geek. Just wherever you are, just type in Cephalofair, and there I'll be.
Where's that from? Where's Cephalofair from?
It's just a made-up word. That kind of sounds like a real word, and I thought it was a real word, and then I realized that it wasn't a real word.
Well, that's good enough a reason for using a made-up word.
Yeah. I mean, that's the short story.
Excellent. Okay. If you want to keep an eye on what we're doing, and thank you for joining us this evening, and if you're listening for the first time, then if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find us on We're Not Wizards. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's We're Not Wizards. If you want to... You can subscribe to us on YouTube, because our fabulous podcast hosts, Podbean, automatically put our podcast on YouTube. If you want to find it the traditional way, just search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast and you shall find us there. You can find us on all the usual places, all your normal podcast catchers. If you want to email us, you can email us magic@we'renotwizards.com. I am aware of the irony. I intended that when I picked the email address, but if you can find us on Acast and Stitcher and Spreaker and Podknife, and you can obviously find us on Apple Podcasts. If you've liked what you heard tonight, we interview wonderful people like Isaac. We interview a lot of Kickstarter creators. We get designers on. We get other content creators on a regular basis. So please, this is the beggy bit when you say, please subscribe to our podcasts through the Apple Podcasts thingy. If you really like what you've heard, then consider dropping us a rating or a review. And as we say, if you are going to drop us a rating or a review, don't give us a 10, because that'll make us big-headed. But don't give us a 1, because that'll make us cry. Give us a 5, because it's in the middle, and it's average. And we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not being average tonight is the rather wonderful Mr. Isaac Childres. So again, thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And there's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
I'm not a wizard.
Definitely not. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Isaac.
Bye.
Goodbye, Isaac. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. Keep an eye out on this Gloomhaven, because it seems to be just growing at a rate of knots. And remember, if you have missed out on being a fighter, you might want to be a founder. So check out their website, and you can jump in and create a little city on the world of Bob of your own. But until the next time, goodbye.